Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. We greet this day by lighting our chalice, and Daniel McPherson, Artinian, will help us out. It's okay. Thanks, Daniel. Let's say together our call to worship. Come, let us gather. We gather to celebrate the sacred within and among us. We come to seek spiritual growth and understanding. We strive to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and love. Together we work to build a world with justice and compassion. Come, let us gather together. Let's rise in body or spirit and sing our opening hymn, number 113 in the gray hymnal, Where is Our Holy Church? As most of you know, this week marked the anniversary of the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., whose words seem as true and imperative today as they did when he spoke them 45 years ago. Our opening words this morning begin with a few familiar sentences originally offered as his last Christmas Eve sermon. It really boils down to this. All life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality. Did you ever stop to think that you can't leave for your job in the morning without being dependent on most of the world? You get up in the morning and go to the bathroom and reach over for the sponge, and that's handed to you by a Pacific Islander. You reach for a bar of soap, and that's given to you at the hands of a Frenchman. And then you go into the kitchen to drink your coffee for the morning, and that's poured into your cup by a South American. And maybe you want tea. That's poured into your cup by someone from China. Or maybe you're desirous of having cocoa for breakfast, and that's poured into your cup by a West African. And then you reach over for your toast, and that's given to you at the hands of an English-speaking farmer, not to mention a baker. And before you finish eating breakfast in the morning, you've depended on more than half the world. This is the way our universe is structured. This is its interrelated quality. We aren't going to have peace on earth until we realize this basic fact of the interrelated structure of all reality.
I'm Dottie Pitt, a member of the Worship Committee. The reading this morning is not from Drop Dead Healthy, but is in fact from Gospel Medicine by Barbara Brown Taylor, who writes as a Presbyterian minister in the liberal Protestant tradition. On Sunday mornings, a great division takes place among American people, as some go to church and most stay home. Those who stay home are not taking a week off. Church is simply not part of their lives. As far as they are concerned, houses of worship are little more than pretty antiques, fussed over by wishful thinkers who do not know when to admit that they are wrong and go home. It is one of the most peculiar things of the 20th century human beings can do, to come together week after week with no intention of being useful or productive, but only of facing an ornate wall to declare things they cannot prove about a God they cannot see. Our word for it is worship, and it is hard to justify in this day and age, but those of us who do it over and over again begin to count on it. This is how we learn where we fit. This is how we locate ourselves between the past and the future, between our hopes and our fears, between the earth and the stars. This is how we learn who we are and what we are supposed to be doing. by coming together to sing and to pray, to be silent and to be still, by peering into the darkness together and telling each other what we see when we do. We may baffle our unbelieving friends and neighbors, but it cannot be helped. Half the time we baffle ourselves, proclaiming good news when the news is so bad, trusting light when the dark is so dark, continuing to wait on the Savior in our midst when all evidence suggests that he packed up and left a long time ago.
Imagine this scene. It's the spring of 2113. It's one of the first bright, sunny days after a long winter. Crocuses are blooming in a memorial garden. A path to that garden is paved with bricks bearing the names of those who were the great founders of this peaceful place of refuge. Dutzik, Dawson, Clancy, Hess, White, Morse, Norton, Robinson. Should I go on? McCory and Franich and Hannon. Ostrom and Kelly, Macmillan. Next to that garden is a simple labyrinth. Children are playing and running, a couple of them slowly walking the labyrinth in focused quiet. Adults of all ages are gathered in small groups, talking, laughing, sparring, in friendly debates about sports and politics. The church bell rings, and some of those people head into the meeting house or into religious education classes. Others go inside for Hebrew school. Still others move toward small group circles. A van pulls up to take a rather large group of folks aged 10 to 80 on a service project laden with donations. Later in the day, that same van will return, and the group that was on the service project will gather for a brief circle of reflection and song before taking their weary bodies and full spirits home. Some will gather for a Vespers service that's mostly singing. And at the end of the day, a sexton will move through the building, making sure everything is in order at the end of that Sunday, because the week has yet to really begin. Monday through Friday, there are people in and out of the building as well, because it houses the center of social services in Milton. The social worker we have now to distribute charitable funds has been joined by a free nursing clinic, a food pantry, a small nonprofit that works on economic justice issues, a free low-cost child care center, free or low-cost, a vocational training program. There's a Buddhist Sangha that holds regular Dharma talks and sitting meditation, and a liberal Muslim community gathers for Friday prayers. Yoga and the earth-centered spirituality group continue and grow. A community garden that provides fresh vegetables to the food pantry is a joint educational and service project for the children of all of the faith communities that gather here. And fresh meals are prepared in the kitchen regularly with that produce. Everyone's invited to gather for fellowship, and meals are taken to those who are too ill to get out. There's a fluid movement of people in and out of these buildings, people from all walks of life with every different kind of story to tell, of every ability and every kind of gift to offer. This spot of geography has reclaimed its place as the town center, but with much greater radius than just the borders of Milton. It's a place for people to come and meet friends and neighbors, to coordinate projects from craft groups to advocacy campaigns. It has become so central, in fact, that public transit, now hovercraft, runs reliably to it from Boston and Randolph and Quincy. It's known as a place to come when you are in need, and it's also known as a place to come when you want to make a difference. It's a community that's collectively realized how to make love visible in public through work for justice, and deeply sees that such work can't be done without full attention to the Spirit. When people first arrive, they know clearly where to enter the building. And the aesthetically pleasing lobby is staffed by community members who are eager to get to know their visitors and are ready to tell the amazing story of how this came to be. The portrait gallery of former leaders includes the serious oil paintings that we currently have of men of centuries before, and a cubist rendering of someone named Parisa Parsa. Murals tell the story of how this hub of community came to be. It all started, you see, when a very old Unitarian Universalist church and a somewhat newer conservative temple both found themselves with issues of building needs and began to talk about how they might begin to address those needs together. It was an unusual thing to do for a congregation that had laid claim to a spot of land for nearly 300 years to consider sharing. For a religiously liberal congregation to join with a religiously conservative one. But it was also a time when there were unique challenges and unique opportunities facing communities of faith. A steady stream of human and financial resources that once had helped keep both going strong were dwindling. Religious observance in the United States was declining rapidly with no sign of an upswing. The public perception of the divisiveness of religion itself kept even the most curious non-religious folks away and wary. These two congregations realized their small piece of the words of Dr. King and decided to lean into the truth of that inescapable network of mutuality, like to cast their lots together in the face of that uncertain future. They decided to share limited resources, to take the risk of needing each other, and in the process showed this corner of the world a model of cooperation that inspired and energized the whole community. First Parish, you see, had been in conversations to discern congregational priorities for over a number of years, and had begun the process of long-range planning centered on the goals of greater presence in the larger community, greater engagement of difference within and beyond the community, and deepening spiritual and communal life internally. This project felt perfect with those stated goals. Both congregations were led by people intent on doing the right thing, not just for themselves, but for the many generations to come. And so they labored long and hard over the details of legal agreements and fundraising plans and architectural drawings. So much so, in fact, that they were so mired in these very important details that they had a hard time telling them why their guts were really clear that this was a good idea to pursue, an opportunity worth thorough consideration. And so they asked their minister to speak to it, to offer a vision, and she did the best she could to keep it concise, because what she really believes is that there is nothing this community can't do if it sets its mind to it, if only it will. And all of the possibilities that are in that range could be a very long sermon indeed. This afternoon, your parish committee will vote on whether to move forward with a plan that has been in the discussion and negotiation stages for 18 months. It develops a memorandum of understanding with the temple that says that we will share the costs of formal architectural drawings and legal fees to establish a joint plan. Temple Shalom's board will vote on that same proposal tomorrow evening. And if both are agreed to move forward, all of you will be invited to join in any of a number of conversations before the annual meeting to hear the details that have currently been worked out. And there will be a vote at our annual meeting to approve the funds and the feasibility for this feasibility and planning work. Friends, when we gather for worship, we do so in this meeting house that's 226 years old. While that number might not be on our minds precisely each week, the weight of heritage is fully present and accounted for, is it not? Tradition, social stature, and culture and religious significance surrounds us in this place. I've preached the stories of our past from this pulpit often, attempting to have us own and understand our history even if the we who's in this room looks and acts and believes a lot differently than the we who built this building, and the we who founded this church even more than a century before this building was built. History still leaves lots to question, for sure, with blank spots and uneven documentation. But the future is utterly vexing because it doesn't leave us any documentary evidence. It doesn't give us any signs of what's for sure going to work. The forebears who built this church were innovators, risk-takers, who changed their worship space inside and out, even moved whole buildings around when it suited their vision and needs. They weren't afraid of losing tradition when they did so. They took themselves seriously as legacy builders, as shapers of tradition as much as inheritors of it. There's a legend that Charles Dickens commented once about being in a gathering of divines, that is, people who were attempting to make contact with those who had gone before, in a very ecclesiastical setting. And the meeting extended itself a long, long time, droning away on unimportant subjects without feeling. Mr. Dickens interrupted the proceedings and said, "I have a suggestion. Why don't we move to a table, sit around that table and hold hands, and see if we can make contact with the living?" Respect for tradition requires us to take up our place in creating the next phase of life for this community. And that requires that we make contact with the living, at least as much as those in our past. If we're to carry on a tradition, remembering that the root of the word tradition is to give over, we need to be mindful of what it is that we have to be willing to give over. All signs from the studies of religious life in America tell us that continuing as we are, hoping some magical tide will change things, is not going to be an effective strategy for building that legacy. A.J. Jacobs, in his book Drop Dead Healthy, writing about the challenge of one man trying to become physically healthier, reminds us of the theory of egonomics, developed by Nobel Prize-winning economist Thomas Schelling. Schelling proposes that we essentially have two selves. Those two are often at odds. There's the present self, as Jacobs puts it, that wants the frosted apple strudel Pop-Tart, and the future self that regrets having eaten that frosted apple strudel Pop-Tart. The key to making healthy decisions, he says, is to respect your future self. Treat that future self as you would a friend or loved one. So just as we can't ensure our body's future health by worrying about it while eating Cheerios and watching The Biggest Loser, our congregation's future self needs the respect and care that come only from some tough choices in the present, perhaps even sacrifices of current indulgences to make sure the future is fit enough to be here for its grandchildren and their grandchildren. As we heard in this morning's reading, our shared life in church is how we locate ourselves between past and future, between our hopes and our fears, between the earth and the stars. This is how we learn who we are and what we're supposed to be doing, by coming together to sing and to pray, to be silent and be still, by peering into the darkness together and telling each other what we see when we do. I know that there are many feelings among us about the possibility of joining in a partnership with the temple. Many questions about the whys and wherefores and how will we get the money. The only limiting factor, I truly believe this, the only limiting factor in the answers to those practical questions is the energy you have for the vision. If you do not have enthusiasm for this project, there will not be enough money. The legal issues will be insurmountable. There will be no consensus on what the buildings should look like. But if you do believe in it, the sky is the limit. All of the rest will come not necessarily easily, but in due course. And if the vision for the imagined future doesn't include this particular project, this particular partnership with the temple, it will take exactly this kind of out-of-the-box thinking to get us to what that vision can be. The conversation about what vision is most compelling to us still needs to be the central part of the work we carry in the coming months. We need to peer into that darkness of the future and tell each other what we see when we do, and weave together the greatest hopes we can muster for a vibrant future for this congregation and this community. And then we need to make our choices based on what our future selves will feel good about. We need to make contact with the living, not just within our walls, but beyond them, to be engaged with where our ministry and mission, our hearts and hands might be most useful in building healing and hope in a world that's torn apart by fear and alienation. One church revitalization specialist suggests that just as bombs have a kill radius, a church should have a love radius. Anyone within 20 miles of a church should feel it. Whatever the future of the property of our church, whatever the buildings look like and whomever dwells in them, I pray that the future of this community includes a palpable love radius, not sentimental love, but love embodied in each and every person who sent forth from worship on Sunday, and the collective work we join together to do to make this world whole. So may it be. Amen. Let's join in singing meditation with Ubi Caritas before silent meditation. breath of life, Spirit of love, we give thanks for the splendor of sunshine, the appearance of crocuses, waking to bird song, for the simple gifts of life that reminds us of the blessings that abound in this marvelous world. In the midst of the blessings of this world, we hold also our longings for a roadmap to a more vibrant future, for guarantees against distress and hardship, for all of those unknowns to become known, for our way to be made clear and our path easy. And yet we know that the struggles along the path are part of what makes for strength, what helps to bind us together in community, what helps us realize the deepest parts of our values. Help us to hold among us and within us, faithful to our care for one another in the midst of challenging conversations about the future. Help us to untether ourselves from our fears that our hopes might take wing. We hold also those daily hurts and yearnings that stay with us even as we make our big plans. Our hearts this season are especially with families learning and deciding future plans for high school seniors. College admission letters, work plans, military service options, for the complicated feelings of those leaving the nest and those who will be left behind. We hold in our hearts all of those who are struggling with illness of mind, body, or spirit, their loved ones and caregivers. Our thoughts are with Brianna Gallivan, who's recovering from knee surgery this week, and our recent loved ones lost. For Ethel Pruitt Venable, Richard Venable's mother, who passed away this week and leaves behind a legacy of generous love. May her memory ever be a blessing and her family find comfort in their loss. With Bibi, we remember the death of her sister-in-law, Mopsy, Charlotte Seymour Lovejoy, on Tuesday. May her memory also ever be a blessing. And we remember those bright lights who have shone in our midst and influenced the world with their gifts. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and this week, Jane Henson, co-creator of The Muppets, and mother of India's friend Heather. Knowing that our time on this earth is limited, may we make good use of the gifts and legacies shared by those we have lost. Might we comfort each other in our grief and carry forth the spirit of love that knows no limit. In the name of all that is holy. Amen. As we prepare to hear a testimonial from Chris Pitt, I invite us to say together our covenant, which we have not done in a little while in worship, our commitment to one another to see each other through in this community. Please join me. In devotion to truth, searching along many spiritual paths, we honor the living legacy of our faith in the God of forgiveness and in the God of limitless love, in whom we are one. We unite in faith to celebrate the sacred as it reveals itself within and among us, to promote spiritual growth and to care for those in need, to honor and protect the natural world, which inspires wonder and sustains life, to walk together in peace, committed to justice and compassion in our world.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Pitt. I've been up at this lectern many times, usually to welcome you to the weekly worship service as a member of the parish committee, and annually to encourage you to do chocolate. And as an aside, I'm happy to announce that you all helped this year's chocolate auction to raise exactly $1,400 for Milton Interfaith Refugee Assistance, for which I thank you and for which MIFRA thanks you. But back to the business at hand. This is the first time that I believe I've been asked to stand up and testify to tell you what I really think about something. The something I've been asked to speak about is the proposed shared space building partnership with Temple Shalom. Talk about the future in 3 minutes or less. Whether or not you have already begun to focus on this, there is more to learn and think about than you can learn in 3 minutes. I've been on the parish committee since this dialogue began less than 2 years ago, and I have only recently really developed my thinking on this. Yet we must make a decision to embrace or walk away from this project in the next 6 weeks at the annual meeting. So you need to pay attention every time the subject comes up. It took me a long time to pay attention. 3 to 4 years ago, I was vaguely aware of the travails of Temple Shalom, Milton's only Jewish congregation, with a large synagogue on Route 138, a building and a parcel of land much bigger than it needed, which it hoped to subdivide, allowing for the construction of some neighborhood stores and a smaller, more cost-efficient synagogue. But after 4 nights of debate at the special town meeting, when the vote was taken, the count fell shy of the required 2/3 majority, and the town meeting declined to rezone the parcel. In the end, the congregation was forced to sell and look elsewhere to establish their new home. In the fall of 2011, Parisa came to the parish committee and recounted a passing conversation she had had with Temple Shalom's Rabbi Fred Benjamin about the possibility of a joint building project at First Parish, which would result in a new home for the temple and an expansion of First Parish's existing space for itself. Parisa asked permission from the parish committee to continue her discussion in a meaningful way. Permission was granted, but I was not really engaged. The proposal sounded far-fetched, and I could not see how our congregation would agree either to share our meeting house or allow the construction of a separate worship building on our campus. The chair of the parish committee at the time, Melinda Collins, began a series of conversations with the president of the temple, Ronit Voigt. I was on the parish committee's executive committee, and at each meeting I heard an update on Melinda's exploratory conversations. We all sensed that some sort of collaboration with Temple Shalom seemed to be a wild and crazy thing to do. It would demonstrate our willingness to embrace people of other faiths, our acceptance of other ways of thinking. It would challenge our professed liberalism. Initially, these conversations were undertaken in the strictest secrecy. Both sides were concerned that if news leaked out, the rumor and gossip mills in town would make it difficult to keep the news accurate. And we weren't ready to announce even to our own congregation, let alone the public, what we were trying to accomplish. A facilitated discussion between a small number of church and temple leaders took place with positive results, but still the circle of those involved was very small. It was clear that Temple Shalom was anxious to move forward as quickly as possible. They expressed fear that their members, especially their young families, would lose patience and begin to go elsewhere. But we at First Parish were still trying to grasp what the project would look like. Early in 2012, there was a common hearth panel here at First Parish, at which the speakers were 3 people from Emmanuel Church in Boston. Turns out there is precedent for a joint venture between a Christian and a Jewish congregation right here in Boston. But Wednesday is my ultimate Frisbee night, and that took priority for me. But my wife Dottie attended and came home fascinated by what she had heard. Last summer, a joint committee began to explore the space and building needs for each congregation and to focus different options for collaboration. Tony Dutzig succeeded Melinda as parish committee chair. The other members of the exploratory committee were Roger Gray, Marcia Maurer, Glenn Pavlicek, and Jen Pincus. This group put pencil to paper and began to envision what the footprint of the construction project would look like. My personal opportunity to learn about the possibilities of collaboration with the Temple Shalom finally came this year when I was asked to join a small working group of leaders from First Parish and Temple Shalom to focus on the legal and governance structures that might be used to make the construction and facility sharing project a reality. In the past 12 weeks, since Christmas, this small working group of First Parish people, Tony, Tracy Robinson, Glenn Pavlicek, Steve Weiser, and me, has met no less than 10 times, half by ourselves and half with our counterparts from Temple Shalom. In this time, I have come to know our fellow committee members from the temple as friends and to respect them as leaders of another faith community, equally determined as we are to preserve and promote their spiritual legacy. Acting in their own self-interest, they present to us an opportunity to help them in their need and to enhance our own spiritual growth at the same time. 2 years ago, we rewrote our covenant, which we just read, the statement that defines our mission and our spiritual path together. The exercise was a struggle. It took many months of hard work by a few leaders, testing the limits of different expressions of faith, and then finally a concentrated period of discussion within the congregation. But ultimately, we came to a consensus about our future. In devotion to truth, searching along many spiritual paths, we honor the living legacy of our faith in the human potential for goodness and in the God of limitless love in whom we are one. Over the past almost 2 years, our church leaders have worked hard to test a radically different idea, an opportunity to strengthen our physical position in the community and to make a statement about living together, sharing resources, and sustainability. To implement this new idea will take a huge commitment of both effort and money. The decision whether or not to move forward with this project will affect the life of this church for generations to come. In the next 6 weeks, you will have the opportunity and the responsibility to participate in reaching that decision. I encourage you to embrace the responsibility. Take advantage of the opportunities that will be given to you to learn about this choice and what it can mean for our future. Be active in the process. Question positively. Open your minds. Think about our covenant with each other and the world and how it may guide our decision. I told you I would tell you what I really think. I support this project. I think it is an opportunity to address physical and space needs at First Parish that we have had for years and that will simply not go away. The resources that Temple Shalom is able to bring to the table at this particular time will not likely be available again. Their contribution will allow us to do things that we could not do on our own. The fact that our partner is a Jewish congregation and not a Christian one makes the collaboration more attractive to me, as we will have more to learn from each other. The fact that Temple Shalom is a conservative Jewish community, not a Reformed one, is not a concern to me, although I had thought it might be. These are good people. They are faithful people. They are no less concerned for justice in the world than we are. What is proposed is not a merger, but a joint venture. I see it as an opportunity, one not likely to come ever again, one that we should embrace, both for our own future and for the good of two faith communities that can do together in one place what they may not be able to do apart. Please pay attention as our leaders share the plans, the challenges, and the possibilities of this project with you over the next few weeks. Be a part of it. Thank you.
We give and receive the morning's offering for the work of this church and the work of this church in the community.
Shall clap their hands.
into strength for this faith community, into comfort, food, and shelter for those in need. And may we be transformed by generosity. Let's join in singing our final hymn, number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Dark together and tell each other what we see there. And if we do this work together faithfully and well, we will indeed go out with joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills shall break forth into singing. The kingdom will be realized through our hearts and hands and humble, steady work. Go in peace. Amen.